Good evening, everybody. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Board of Directors meetings, committee meetings are open to the public but are not public meetings. All school district residents who wish to make public comment should sign in prior to the start of the meeting and request to speak during citizens' participation. School district residents wishing to speak to the board shall do so only during the citizen participation section of the meeting. Public comment is welcome, and all issues will be referred to the appropriate board committee or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be available by contacting the business office. Please take a moment to silence all of your electronic devices and your cell phones. Prior to this meeting, the board conducted an administrative session, and we have all of our board members here except for Tim Sigmund, who is excused this evening. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Kicking things right off with Ms. Wallen and our budget presentation, updates in the budget.
Good evening. So we're going to provide you an update to the budget. So if you can to the next slide, please. So, of course, you saw this somewhat before, but however, this is just an updated version. So my point of providing this again is, of course, we're having a review with just updates this evening. April 20th, we'll approve, adopt, and advertise of proposed final, which is the proposed final. It's not a final. And then on May 4th, we'll have a public hearing. The one of the reasons I wanted to point this timeline out is the information April 7th, April 20th, and May 4th will likely not change. It will be the same information, just providing information for the board as well as the public, and to provide hear from the public. It will not change simply because the information related to Homestead Farmstead will not come in till after pretty much the May 4th timeline. Additionally, we will plan to advertise the meeting at the max index, and then we work down from there. And I'll show you some information here relatively soon what that max index means. So, of course, our timeline intact. We hope to have our budget approved by June 1st. Next slide. So what was the change? I know we've talked a lot about what will we do to balance the budget in terms of the capital reserve, but truly what has changed and why the need for consideration of a tax increase. So, of course, the Special Education Comprehensive Plan is one of the leaders. We, with this budget proposal, have 2 social workers with the removal of the family navigators. We had an additional supervisor of special education, which has been shared before. This is a goal to have 1 supervisor for elementary and 1 supervisor for the secondary, all within the comprehensive plan again, and as well as just to show that, artistics, life skills, learning support is all growth in the part of the special education comprehensive plan. All those items are related to that specifically and is one of the largest drivers of the budget. Additionally, we're looking to add a technology department classified position to assist in those things that are listed there. Additionally, what other has increased? We had contractual increases, which is with salary, with contracts. The PSERS rate has increased, service contracts, such as other professional development, contracts to provide professional services to the district, transportation, our software, hardware, and cameras, installation and updates of cameras. This will be our 3rd year for ACTI funding, as well as the cost of inflation. We're not so scared from having the cost of inflation affect us just like every other household around. So that's really what's changing. So it's not the standard items that we have had in the budget. It is the items that are listed pretty much there that's driving the deficit in the budget. Next slide. So where are we at? Minimally, we spoke previously that 1% was for ACTI. And then, of course, where we should be is somewhere between 3.5% to 4.2% with some changes anticipated in the end. So I mentioned a little earlier, we will provide a budget advertised and on display and proposed final with the numbers of 4.2%, with the understanding that we will likely come below that, but what rate, of course, will be determined as we move a little closer. So as such, our revenues without fund balance utilization, 1% would be 81 million, 3.5% would be 82.2, 4.2% would be 82.5. Our expenditures are across the board are $83 million. And so then, of course, the unreconciled gap between revenue expenditures, if it's 1%, we're looking for 1.8 million, 3.5%, we're still looking for 850,000, 4.2%, we're looking for 570,000. As we have done in the past years, we have provided a portion of the PSER's committed fund balance as a revenue stream for the increase of expenditures. In doing that, of course, we're looking at the addition of $272,590 of addition to the budget, as well as what that does then really reduces the gap that we're looking for. So the unreconciled difference is 1.5 million for 1%, 3.5% is a little over $500,000, and then the 4.2% is like $298,285. Maintain fund balance policy says 6 to 8%. If you recall, when we reviewed the audited financial report, it was 4.9 million for unassigned fund balance. To maintain 6%, we need 4.9 million of unassigned fund balance. So in this budget proposal, there is no intent to use unassigned fund balance. So I want to make that clear. So we will need to find a revenue source. At this point, I do not anticipate any additional expenditure cuts. What has changed from the last meeting to this meeting is we had several changes in terms of finding out new information for some of the contracts that we had in place. Our insurance, the only thing that's outstanding is our insurance renewals in terms of professional liability, building liability, the package policy. However, I don't determine that it's going to be a huge increase that would have greatly affect the expenditure line, but we were updating as we were receiving new information from the previous meeting to this meeting. But moving forward, I don't see the $83 million changing significantly to change that unassigned fund balance or to change the gap drastically. Next slide. So these are slides, and I will say with a caveat here, these slides are looking directly at revenue streams, local, state, and federal. The local is slightly lower than the previous slides simply because we're presenting these slides based upon a 0% increase, because I don't want to preempt the board to say we want 3.5% or 4.2% of additional revenue when there has not been an action taken as to what that tax increase looked like. So these few slides here remaining are based upon a 0% tax increase. And basically they're showing the difference between our local, state, and revenue sources between 26 to 27 budget. Local revenue 55 million, state revenue 24.4, and federal at 1.1. Now, we will also anticipating to continue receiving federal revenue. So, of course, if that comes out that we are to not obtain federal revenue in Title 1, 2, 3, or 4, that could obviously change our budget. I have not heard to date, so we are still planning on moving forward with those revenue streams for federal dollars. Next slide. Here's a summary detail of the revenue in and of itself. And as you can see, my slide was. This slide represents the actuals of 25, the budget of 26, and the budget of 27. And then, of course, the percent change and the dollar change. So, for example, our current real estate taxes, and if you recall, I did do an update to the board of the difference between the assessment values that we were factoring in at a previous meeting. So here is the proposed real estate taxes as they currently stand from the latest assessment data that we obtained. Our budget for real estate taxes is $38 million, which is a 4.3% change over the 26 budget. Of course, our earned income, also a 4.9% increase change. You can see is anticipated to go $453,493 over our current budget. The realty transfer tax, again, small increase, but still 4.29%. And the delinquent real estate tax increases is 1.3% projected over our 2026 budget. All other revenue sources are for local sources, increase in a total of 12.76%. So overall, our local revenue went from $55.2 million over the $52.5 million, which is a 5.12% increase, nearly a 869 natural increase without considering tax increases. Our state source revenue, again, we have our basic education funding estimated at 1.29% increase. These numbers are relatively small in the scope of the budget and the scope of revenue. The special education budget was pretty much flat when you think of the dollar change in of itself. Transportation, again, actually went down a little bit from the estimates that were provided to us. State share of Social Security and medical taxes are typically half of what our expenditure is, and we have been typically receiving half from the state source in that aspect. As you can see, the retirement contributions also is half. So those two items, the Social Security and the retirement, are based upon the salaries that were within the budget. So our total state revenue is anticipated to go up $749,557 above the 26 budget in terms of 3.16%. Federal revenue, as you can see, is a slight increase. Those numbers are based upon we are currently receiving. So, of course, that could fluctuate from year to year. The revised numbers have not come out yet, so we are still anticipating to currently receive or account for $205,000 in the current year, which will be a part of the next year's funding. And, of course, then our total revenue overall, local, state, and federal, $80.8 million, 4.65%, and this is a 3.594417 increase over the 26 budget. Next slide. This represents our expenditures in of itself and broken down between three major categories: salaries and benefits, purchase of services, and supplies and equipment. Salaries and benefits, in terms of object on our budget, is the 100 and 200 series. Professional services, of course, includes all special education services, transportation services, and so forth. That's the 300, 400, 500 series objects. Supplies and equipment are the 600, 700, and 800, 900 equipment category of objects. Salaries and benefits, of course, 2.75% change from the prior year, $48.7 million. Purchase of services, $20.2 million, which is a 7.36% change from prior year. And, of course, supplies and equipment is a 14.46% change from prior year of $4.3 million. Next slide. This provides just a little bit more detail on a chart, like in a form, where you can see the difference outlined between each of the sections. So salaries, of course, make up the largest portion of the salary and benefits, which is 5.66% for the entire district. And of course, the employee benefits down slightly, 1.23% from prior year. So the total salaries and benefits, that was stated in the previous slide, $48.7 million, a 2.75% overall increase from the current budget. Purchases services, all purchase professional and technical services, IU, is really where that is falling. So we are going from $6.1 million in the 26 fiscal budget to $6.5 million, an increase of approximately $470,000, 7.69%. Purchase of property services are exactly related to property services. That's actually a little bit of a decrease. And then, of course, our other purchase of services, these will be outside services that we also obtain services from. So that is going an increase of 7.97%, a $950,000 change from prior year's budget. What I'd like to say with the supplies and equipment, as I may have mentioned before, if you quite remember, supplies here are not just classroom supplies. Our supplies involve software, hardware, text materials, consumables, along with supplies to the classroom. So while it tends to increase, it's actually increasing 10.56%. It's not related to classroom needs. It's related to software and computer needs, which is also servicing the classroom, is where the largest portion is. Our property, of course, is 96.14%, and this is services that are equipment related to property. And then, of course, our debt services and transfers that are listed below, truly funding our outstanding debt. No specific change there. We budget the principal and interest of every one of the debt instruments that we have, and it's based upon the amortization schedule. So that can change, year to year based upon what the amort schedule calls for. So overall, our debt service is 6.78%. And overall, our expenditures are 4.8% over prior year's budget, which is $3.8 million. And I believe that'll conclude the presentation. So as I mentioned before with our timeline, the next phase of our budget, we will approve, adopt, and advertise a proposed final. We will prepare the documents related to a 4.2% increase, because that's the max, and that'll be out. We're asked the board to approve that. That is not the final. That is just setting the stage as to what the maximum would be. That is our ability to provide the necessary documents needed in order to prepare for the finalization. So it's just showing what that max is. It's not saying that that is what the max will be. We still need to make decisions as to what do we want to do. If you could, Vanessa, if you could go to the next slide, please. I'm sorry, the next one. We need to decide what we're comfortable with and what, sorry, this one, yes. So as you can see, the deficit there, if we just go 1% is 1.5 million. If we go 3.5%, it's 577,000, and 4.2 is $298,285 that we still need to look for. So options there, which we can discuss as a board at the upcoming meetings, as well as the public hearing. The options that you have, really, which we have historically done, is decrease the capital reserve funding. Right now, it's set in the budget as $1 million based upon the capital plan, the 5-year capital plan. We historically, when we needed and looked for money, that was the first area to cut, in hopes that we would not necessarily cut into the continual improvements of the district on the capital plan. There are other options available too. There are taking some assigned funds that we have specific to the increases in the budget to assign as well and use. I will say using assigned funds as it is, it's a one-time deal. Once those funds are gone, they're gone. So that's basically two options. The Homestead Farmstead numbers that we'll will be anticipating to come will likely not produce $298,000. So really providing you the options of what are you comfortable with, and how will we address it, either by using assigned funds or by cutting capital reserve and bringing it down for the 5-year plan. Those really are the two options that are available unless we decide to do a tax increase of this nature. So could we get to 1%? Sure, but we're using a lot of assigned funds and or cutting the entire capital plan funding mechanism that's in place in the budget. And we'd still be looking for some more money in terms of balancing. If you were to ask me or any one of the administrators, we would be comfortable with 3.5%. So we're still looking for over $500,000, and it would not be cutting into the capital reserve quite as bad, or as utilizing those assigned funds quite as bad as well. We feel as to 4.2% is not something that we're wanting to recommend. We don't want to recommend the max index, and I don't think we necessarily have to recommend the max index. It's just we need to be cognizant of how we will address the deficit, because realizing this is the first year that we will not have unassigned fund balance to balance the budget moving forward.
Thank you, Belinda, for the overview and also the comments at the end. I think I will leave room here for questions, but I'm going to start with a couple. When you talked about next meeting and what is on the agenda for the 20th, you were saying something about 4.2%. I would just like you to repeat what it is that we're doing on the April 20th meeting. Correct. To clarify.
So we will prepare an action item for an increase of proposed final of 4.2%, which will be those numbers in that column. And then we will have all the necessary documents on for display for 30 days. That same information, along with what it would be to get to 3.5%, would be what's going to be reviewed at the budget hearing.
On the 4th.
Correct. Then, of course, on May 18th, then there'll be decisions, where do we want to go? So there'll be plenty of open forum, public discussion as a board as to where we feel comfortable with the budget in terms of what an increase looks like and or using capital reserve funds or assigned funds to balance the budget.
Okay, and we can continue to ask these questions, but what I'm hearing from you is that the majority of our discussion surrounding that in these meetings will be on May 4th and May 18th.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. The only other question I have, just to better understand with my Tuesday post-break brain, is assigned funds. Your general explanation of assigned funds actually confused me. So I'm wondering, can you re-explain what that is in terms of an option to save money?
Vanessa, could I ask you to do a favor?
Thank you.
Could I ask you to go out to the website and to do the last presentation to the board?
I do know this has been reviewed. I know that.
It has. And the presentation is available on the website, but if she can bring it up, I'll review it once more.
That more of the specifics are on that presentation.
Yes. Sorry.
Because I think leading up to this, where my mind is going is leading up to the meetings where we have more robust discussion about what the decisions are we will be making. It's helpful to know, to remember what those specific options are.
Yes, the balance sheet presentation. And I apologize if I had the thing. You'll need to go down, scroll down to where the discussion of assigned, unassigned funds are. If you can keep scrolling. Here, okay, yeah, keep scrolling, sorry. Okay, so we are heading into the general fund balance. Up a little more, there we go, stop. Okay, all right, so these here items are the general fund, which is committed. So these fund balances are committed, they're not able to be used. They're for a committed purpose. If you go to the next slide down, Vanessa, here are the assigned funds on the fund balance. These are assigned for a specific reason. These are typically assigned by the business manager when we are finalizing the audit. These are items that we can use specific to the needs of the budget as they increase. So for example, the 1.23 million, which is listed as capital reserve assignment, that number could be used in portion, number could be used in full to balance the budget, because we have $1 million in the budget of capital reserve. So you can use a portion of this, you can use all of it, but I will say once it's used, it's gone. There is no more assigned funds in terms of capital reserve. Our medical insurance is not increasing, so I would not recommend using assigned funds for that. Our safety and security grant, from the grant, it's not increasing, so I would not recommend using funds from that. The technology improvements, I'd like to keep that set aside simply because there will be more future technology needs that will help offset the budget maybe the following year. And then, of course, the future borrowing costs, which is there as we set aside for the next, starting to set aside for the next project, as in terms of borrowing. So when I mention about using assigned funds, what I'm really talking about here is using some portion of the $1.2 million.
For capital improvements?
For capital improvements,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you for pulling back up an older document.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Great question.
Yeah, thank you. Now that I've asked all of my questions, sorry to take the time first. Is there anyone who has more questions for Belinda about that presentation? There are probably a couple, but you can start, Dave.
No, I just have a question for Belinda. Belinda, have you done an analytic of what it would take annually at your maximum index to make up for the past fiscal negligence of not taxing properly to balance your budget?
Dave, I have not done an analytics simply because we would never be able to catch up with being underneath the index to fund us appropriately for the past years to the index. So it would be too much of a change that I don't think we could substantially take on that portion that was left off the table, so to speak.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, but I wanted to find out if you did it.
Great. Thanks,
Thank you.
Belinda. Other questions?
I have two. Just a quick clarifying one for slide 6, which has the budget summary revenue detail. The 80 million there is assuming the last line of total revenue at the bottom for fiscal year 27. That's assuming that's without any tax increase?
Yeah, the 80 million is presenting without a tax increase.
So
just-
all the percent change increases for real estate taxes and earned income are based on current tax rates, and those are changes because of new builds or changes
Correct.
in assessments and everything else?
Yes, the change in assessments, correct.
Thanks. I just needed that for clarity's sake. But then I had a question, also for clarity's sake, about the committed PSERS funds. The 272,000 that I think is mentioned on slide 4. And just the proposed use of the PSERS commitment, it's got the word commitment in there, and so I'm just wondering what that actually entails and
Sure.
if it is potentially exposing us to some issues down the road.
It's not going to expose us to issues down the road. So a few years ago, the board had set aside X number of dollars for PSERS because we knew we were going from nearly 14% to 38% over the next few years. So at that particular point in time, and I can't remember the exact year, it was on the presentation that Vanessa just had up, so it's available on the website. But it was a fund set aside, and every year we do, Mr. Fordham does a calculation based upon what the new rate of PSERS is, what that call will be, and the 272,590 is just a proration utilization of that PSERS committed funds to apply. So anytime PSERS is increasing, we're able to take a portion of that commitment and apply that to the actual increase moving forward.
Sorry, just as a follow-up, because we're on the topic, then that's calculated then basically as like what we can tolerate taking from the PSERS commitment. And so, just how much wiggle room is there within that calculation?
We keep those funds set specifically for the PSERS increase. So this is looking at your salary accounts times the PSERS rate, and then, of course, half of that portion is what the state should be providing us. So the year-to-year portion, if the PSERS goes 30% to 31%, we're looking at 1% use of committed funds to help. So there's no more pool on tax rates to help fund that PSERS. We're using those committed funds. Does that help? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Rain. Al?
So, Belinda, even with a 4.2% increase, we would still be over $500,000 out of balance. And you're thinking, well, I think the administrative team is thinking around 3.5 to make up that $850,000 difference. Most of that would be taken from capital reserve.
Yes. If first, if it's unreconciled, the $850,000 is
Gotcha.
what's unreconciled. What we're saying here is we're going to take that $850,000, apply the PSERS commitment because the PSERS portion is increasing. So it actually brings the gap down, the available funds minus that gap down to a little over $500,000. So we're really technically looking for $500,000 at 3.5%.
Right. And when it comes to assigned fund balance or assigned balances, you all really aren't recommending that. That's really one-time money to try to balance a budget. That's really then we don't have that money in that area that we perceive that we're going to need in the future.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Using the assigned funds.
Yeah.
In what I mentioned earlier, once it's used, it's gone. And so then you've got to address future years what to make up with those funds.
Right. And ACTI, I know we mentioned here this is our third year we're committing to it. Mm-hmm. How much are we committing to it?
Sure. It's about $365,000 a year. $365,000 is 1%
Right.
for us. So this budget has all but $900,000 associated with ACTI. And we need 5 years. So this is 3 of 5. So we need 2 more years yet to make sure that we're building in for ACTI's future loan.
And the hope there, I think, according to the JOC, they're pretty close to looking at some good options for a land purchase, which I think is going to really set it off then once the county sees we're serious about ACTI, that we'll get some other contributions there. But technically, if the board would choose, the capital reserve and any of the assigned monies or whatever could be utilized if we so chose.
Yes.
Not that we're recommending that.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. So, Belinda, how did we allocate the $50,000 adequacy funding that we received from the recent state budget?
We didn't, it's not proposed for us for next year.
Did we receive it for this year?
We received it this year, but it's not in the
Okay.
proposal for next year.
Okay, but I'm curious, where did it go this year?
It comes in as basic ed subsidy as additional subsidy.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks.
So if we didn't budget for it,
Yeah.
which we didn't in the current year because
Yeah.
it was not necessarily a guaranteed, when it comes in, it'll go into fund balance, and then it'll be applied for the following year.
Okay. And we won't really know for next year, right, until the state passes the budget?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's proposed, but
Okay.
we're not counting on that proposal at this particular point. We're only preparing a budget on known facts in terms of basic ed subsidy.
Okay. The average increase per household for the 4.2% or 3.5%, do you have an idea what that would be?
We plan to provide a calculator in the upcoming meetings, so you have a
Okay.
clear understanding what that is. We like to reserve doing that until we know what the homestead farmstead numbers are,
Okay.
because sometimes that number, as that increases, will lessen the burden for the taxpayer.
And you said already, I know, but when will we expect that information?
It's due to come out beginning of May, so
May.
we will likely have that information by May 18th to present to the board and to show what that would look like for the average parcel.
Okay, any additional questions on the budget?
I have comments.
Okay, one moment. Any additional questions before we have a comment? Okay, keeping in mind that we will be also discussing this further at next meeting. Dave, if your comment is related to what has been presented, then you can say it.
Okay. First of all, if you're going to deplete unassigned funds, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul and just pushing it down the road as the past boards have over the last 8 years. So you're just exponentially increasing your issue. The capital funds, I think you need to identify which projects you're not going to do, rather than just say broadly, we're going to take X out. So I'm here by making a motion to have a special admin meeting before our next meeting, an hour before, to understand what direction we can head. Because I don't know that any of us has enough information yet to make critical decisions in May. So I'd like that be brought to a vote, if possible, with a second.
So I'm hearing Dave made a motion for a meeting, keeping in mind that if it is an administrative session and it is voting in any regard, that it would need to be a public meeting that is advertised ahead of time. So I'm hearing a motion and that it is looking, I'm hearing a motion. I don't hear a second for that at this moment, Dave. So what we'll plan to do is at our next meeting, we do have, I'm pulling back up what was just open.
Someone just say second, Alice.
We do not have a second here at the table. Hold on, I'm looking for,
Could we repeat the motion one more time? I'm sorry, another senior moment.
go ahead, Dave, you can say what your motion was again. Al's asking you to repeat it.
I recommend that we a motion to have an administrative meeting for an hour before our next board meeting to further understand our options. Because to go straight into May decision time, to me, is short-sighted. And everybody needs to understand where the money's going to come from.
So
I don't think we're at a level of education and understanding to make decisions.
So we heard the motion repeated. Thank you for repeating it. The motion has been stated again. We don't currently have a second for that motion, but what we do have, just reminding people of the timeline that's on the table, that we're not voting on the budget until June 1. So as of right now, I'm not sure if you're able to be looking at the timeline right now, Dave, where you are, but this is in that document that Belinda shared with us for the presentation this evening. We have 1, 2, 3 more meetings, 2 of which in May 4th and May 18th, are specifically set to discuss these items that you are referring to, with ample time to ask questions and discuss as a board and the public, including the public hearing where the public can comment on it. So that it is built into the process of the budget to have a lot of time to do exactly what it is that you're asking for. We are not voting on the final budget at our next meeting.
I know we weren't.
Correct. So as of right now, because there is no second on that, that is the schedule that we will follow. Are there any other questions on the budget review presentation for today?
Just a clarification.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Something that Dave had said, Belinda, I want to confirm, when you talk about that $1 million from the capital reserve funds, that's not taking money away from funds that are allocated to capital projects. This is a reserve fund, correct?
This is money sitting in the general fund operations budget to fund the capital plan. So we set $1 million in the general fund budget as a line item expenditure that we would move to the capital plan to fund those projects. The capital plan has been approved, but for obviously some discussions, we can reduce that level of funding. It is subjective to what the board chooses to do with the general fund portion of the capital plan. And just as a correction, the next meeting will approve a proposed final, but it is not the final. There's still lots of work to do.
There's room for discussion and changes before the final vote.
Correct.
Thank you.
Can I add some context and flavor to what Belinda said, and it may help some of the newer board members? So in previous years, to help balance the budget, we would have the administration reallocate some of the money that was set aside for the capital improvement plan for that year. And what they would do is they would take a portion of that money, and Josh and the facilities team would reprioritize certain projects and may not do them in that current calendar year, but may push them off a year or may juggle something to do it in a different order. So it's not permanently robbing that money. It's just using it at a different time in a different manner. It's just being agile with your budgeting and project planning. Am I
That's
overstating
correct.
that? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's helpful to know that we would be looking at the impact in more detail. Okay, we are going to move on from that for this evening, but again, much more to come with the budget as soon as next meeting. There's no citizens' participation this evening, so we are moving on to routine approvals. I'm looking for a motion to take 5.1, the agenda, 5.2, the regular board meeting minutes from the 2nd, 5.3, regular board meeting minutes from the 16th, the approval, 5.4, approval of the Clowney transportation drivers, 5.5, approval of Jacoby transportation drivers, and 5.6, human resources recommendations. I'm looking to take all of those items together in a vote.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Yes, I think I speak on behalf of all of us. I hope I can do that to congratulate Susan Yingling on her retirement. After 25 years as assistant secretary at our high school, we wish her all the best.
Thanks, Kathleen. All right, let's take a vote. There's the end of the line there. All right, Ryan.
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Justine.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Dave. Dave. Oh. All right, well. He's not there. And I vote yes. All right, moving on to information items. We're going to start with 7.1, non-resident student, and I believe Dr. McFarland has some information about this item.
Good evening. Yes, I've been in communication with a family who are really excited about the opportunities Gettysburg Area School District and our high school have to offer. They do not live in the Gettysburg Area School District boundaries. In talking to them, have talked them through the process of enrollment, through registration, board approval, through policy 202, and then tuition, to which they have all been agreeable to. So this is an information item for you guys here for voting, I believe, at our next meeting.
Great, thank you. Any questions about that item?
Dr. McFarland, we didn't recruit a great athlete here, did we, or something?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
We'll find out.
Okay.
Just likely a great kid, right? All right, moving on to 7.2, our first policy on the agenda this evening, policy 125, adult education. This policy is revised, the revisions are in red. comments or questions on this? Kathleen, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. Thank you. Is this policy really written for adult? Well, is it specific toward the achievement of a high school diploma or 8th grade graduation certificate? Is that the purpose of this adult education?
Yes.
I mean, that is the purpose of it, right?
So
in the
when you're
end-
saying that is the purpose of it, so
the
what
purpose
is the
of this
purpose?
policy, so it's an adult education
Yes.
policy, and it's the real purpose of it so someone can achieve a high school diploma or 8th grade graduation certificate.
Yes, I mean, there is a series of services that districts are expected to be providing, which, and the section 1901, it just instructional and recreational services, and it talks about adult education, and it doesn't necessarily talk about a diploma or an 8th grade, but it just talks about adult education as being an expected extension type of education. That's offered. I don't know, but I didn't want to talk with Drs. Matzner and McFarland. Like, I don't know the history. Like, this policy has been around. This wasn't a new policy. We revised it, but I did wonder what the premise, like what your history is in providing it. Any adult education, which I know many districts have these policies, and no adults are ever showing interest. So it doesn't really come
We
into
have not had
fruition.
any since I've been
Yeah.
here that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Well, in the authority section, it mentions the achievement of high school diplomas, 8th grade graduation certificates, credits toward graduation, which led me, to think that. But I have to say, when I first started reading it, I thought, oh, adult ed, are we going to be offering, I don't know, like underwater basket weaving for adults? Like, no, that's not it. This is really about getting your credential.
Yeah, this is for the purpose of you're older than 18, but you want to get
Yes.
your diploma. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And I think at the bottom of that document, there may be some old language that might want to go. Starts with utilize appropriate staff members.
Yeah, I saw that too.
It's
It's
some
just after the list items.
So,
Yeah, it's beyond the list. Yeah, I get it.
okay, thank you. That's it.
Any other comments on policy 125?
I just have a pretty generic question about ACTE, and if this would apply, if our policies from our participating districts for ACTE would have reach into their programs, or are they autonomous in terms of this type of policy? I just don't know.
That's probably a Lee question.
Lee, did you hear that question?
I'm listening. This is all new. Like, we don't have very many adult ed policies that come up. And so I'm hearing your question about ACTI, and your question would be like whether ACTI could absorb some of the responsibilities or expectations of this policy. I think it's possible. I think that it depends on the joint operating committee of ACTI, right? So what are they willing to provide and offer? That probably seems like a more appropriate place, and that might be where many of the other clients that I work with who don't have this policy are probably relying on their local career and technical education center. And so I think it's reasonable to ask. I don't think there's a limit one way or the other. If jointly the handful of districts comprising ACTI say, yeah, this would be a great service, then jointly it could be offered in lieu of what the district's offering. But I think if it's not at the moment, that's where this plays in. But yeah, it's a good question.
Any other questions on policy 125? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to 7.3, policy 011. This says it's a new policy. This was brought to our attention by Justine. She was going through our board training, and it referenced having this policy for school boards. It's basically it says right here, it's the standards and code of conduct, principles for governance and leadership, just kind of the standard, what is the expectation of the board. I believe, Lee can speak differently to this if this is true, but I believe there used to potentially be something like this written, and then as we were reworking, maybe it wasn't there, but we decided that we wanted to put it back down and write.
You mean as a board? Mm-hmm. I don't know that history. Maybe Mike or
I
others
was
might
gonna
know.
say, I
But
feel
when
like-
I got here, it wasn't in place, but many boards have it in place, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. In my brain, I'm remembering like maybe even way back in 2019 that it was, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way, it's a good thing to have in writing. Now, there are two different options here, which I believe are fairly similar, but just kind of formatted different ways. So if you could speak to that, Lee, about...
So this policy is not required in any way. It is a policy drafted, and that makes sense that Justine would have learned about it through PSBA training. They drafted it. It's an understanding of how boards get along, a certain expectation of operational interactions. So whether the difference is, I mean, I think the one that talks about code of conduct, I think that's slightly older than the older one that talks about principles for governance and leadership. I think that's the more recent one. That's where most of my other clients have the principles for governance and leadership versus the code of conduct. But some of my clients still have code of conduct. So it is really just setting the stage for how you as a board interact and incorporating like Dr. Matzner and sort of like the board of 10.
Mr. President, Ms. President?
Yes, Al, go ahead.
I would just say, I do believe this gives us a good reminder of how we should be interacting with one another and good group dynamics and so on. And just, having this as a resolution or approved by our board, I just think it just proves that we're committed to having positive and productive meetings and the group dynamics that we all mutually respect one another. And I do believe at some point, my first year on the board, I thought I remembered us having a certificate somewhere posted on a wall or whatever, and I think we just lost track of that along the way. But I think it's good stuff.
Yeah. Was that a PSBA certificate? I think pre-COVID they would visit, and they would during Board Appreciation Month they'd visit and they'd hand out certificates and whatnot. I feel like post 2020 it's not happening, but not intentionally. Just lots going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I have to say I agree. I don't see any downside to having this. I mean, and I think it's really beneficial, especially for people who are new to board positions, to know, okay, this is what's expected. I think it's really helpful.
No, we wouldn't be voting on this until the next meeting, but I wonder if does it sort of behoove us to figure out which format we like better?
Yeah, you probably should pick an option.
Okay.
Like, not voting, but low-key.
Yeah, just kind of general consensus. Any opinions on format? It's very similar content. I would say that it gets into more detail on the bullet points for the board governance standards code of conduct one, but the categorizing bold headings on the principles for governance and leadership is pretty slick in my opinion. I think it reads in a cool way. It also seems like it's newer. That's kind of where my brain went, but I'm up for either. Opinions, thoughts?
There's just a couple of things.
Karen, I'm so sorry. Thank you for the wave. I was zoning into my computer. Go ahead, Karen.
I just wanted to say, I like both of them, but, not as a board member, just looking that the 011, there's a lot more in there, and if you want to make sure you're following it, maybe it's too detailed.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Which one? They're both 01.
Yeah.
oh, well, I thought one
No,
was...
one had a different number on it.
There's 001 was... there's 001 and
Oh, okay.
011.
Not one. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
So,
It does both say 1.
They actually have different titles.
I wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
That's a really
one
good
is
point.
titled Principles for Governance and Leadership, and the other option is Board Governance Standards / Code of Conduct. So the titles are different.
Yeah, that's a good point, Karen. That the school governance one is way more detailed in that regard.
Yep, the code of conduct one, the board governance standards code of conduct, has got a couple of references to complying with board policy for media engagement and for applicable local, state, and federal laws. And I just feel like it leaves us open to maybe not having explicit policies that we then have to make in order to be able to adhere. So my preference is for the first one, principles of governance and leadership.
Thanks, Ryan. Anyone else?
I prefer that one as well. I think that we might want some language change in the section that's planned thoughtfully. Do we want to begin each of those 4 bullet points with adopt? So for instance, does the board adopt annual goals that are aligned with the comprehensive plan, or do we set them? Does the board develop a financial plan, or does the board adopt a financial plan? Does the board formulate a master facility plan, or does it adopt one?
I have to agree. I like using the word adopt on all 4 of those bullets. I also like that plan much better than the other one. It's clearer to me what's expected.
So you want to, just so we're clear, Kathleen, you're saying to change the wording on all 4 of those bullet points to start with the word adopt.
Yes, the first bullet point does begin with adopt. 2, 3, and 4 currently do not.
It sets a different intention for what our role is, I think, in all of those things, right?
Yeah.
Which is more accurately reflective of what we do. Anyone have anyone averse to having 011, the principles document, be the one that we kind of adjust and move to the vote next meeting? All right, great. Well, then let's say that that's the one that we want to move forward to actually get a chance to vote on.
And we'll change the wording on those bullet points.
Wonderful, thanks. Any other questions on that policy? Okay, moving on to 7.4, policy 712, school security is revised. It kind of goes hand in hand with the 7.5, although you can ask questions separately about it. The administrative guideline, which we don't vote on, is there for just your reference. It is all changing a title. So school security is changed to school supervision in both of those items. Or school event staff is just a change in title. Questions or comments on that policy or administrative guideline?
Dr. Dalton, I'm just guessing the intent, the spirit of the intent behind that was that staff and security, staff provide supervision, but they're not technically security people, that there's a little bit of a different role there?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just answer that one for you.
Which policy number refers to actual security? What policy actually refers to security? So this is no longer about security, it's about supervision, but...
Oh, all the 800s, we're working on, I'm working on with Officer Bivens, we're working on 805.1 and 805.2. There's a whole series of security policies, but we're working through them based on new laws and whatnot, yeah.
Thank you so much. And since we've changed some of this language, do we want to change the title of this as well to something like school supervision? Because I think we have the word security in the title.
That's listed in there as well, right above the attachment.
The name changes?
Oh, yes, changes include changing title to school supervision.
Thank you.
In Board Docs, you can't change the title itself.
Got it.
Until after everything's done. And you can't show it for you. So that's why that's there.
Got it. I appreciate that. I read that as the title in, anyway, that's fine. Yes. Thank you for clarifying. Any other comments on 7.4 or the AG for 7.5? All right, we're going to move on to 7.6. That's the ICTI General Fund Operating Budget for the 26-27 school year. We do have Sean Eggenroe coming in to talk to us about this next meeting on the voting portion of it. So tonight, if you have comments or questions about it, we can gather those and provide them for him so he can kind of help prepare that for our next meeting. So any comments or questions on the general fund operating budget for ACTI? Okay, seeing none. If any questions do arise, we will get a chance to ask those as well at next meeting. I did not get a chance to ask these people beforehand, but do we have any committee reports from PSBA? No, or the JOC? Oh, okay then. We will eagerly await. Al started to hint at things, so I'm sure there'll be another update coming soon. Moves on to program reports then. Dr. Messer.
Yes, just a few things. I know I announced for a couple of meetings we were doing a Keeping Kids Safe from Hidden Digital Dangers presentation that happened back in on March 25th. We had well over 100 families in attendance. It was fantastic. We do now have a resource page from that presentation on our website. So everything that the FBI agent talked about and people who were there from our resource fair, we have some resources on our website for people to check out. Again, I want to shout out to the Gettysburg Area Education Foundation for donating 100 copies of the book, The Anxious Generation, which we gave away at that presentation also. So thank you to them. If you are a fan of Farm Show milkshakes, tomorrow the high school and middle school mini-thons are holding a milkshake fundraiser from 2:30 to 6 at Warrior Stadium, presented by the PA Dairymen's Association. The event supports Four Diamonds, helping fund life-saving research and provide care for children and families battling childhood cancer. Hopefully the weather will be a little nicer because it's a little cold for milkshakes, but please stop by. 2:30 to 6 o'clock tomorrow at Warrior Stadium. We did have recently announced our GLOWS winners for the month of February. Those winners were Josh Sig, a phys ed teacher at the high school, Brittany Crows, who's food service staff member at Franklin Township, and Mary Finn Meyer, a 7th grade math teacher at the middle school, were recognized for their dedication, kindness, and positive energy every day. So congratulations to them. Today we had a donation from the Good Samaritan Lodge number 336. They made a clothing donation today with an estimated value of somewhere between $10,000 and $13,000. The organization's annual clothing drive will assist our elementary and middle school students, and we're very thankful for their continued support. They came in this morning for a photo op and had all the clothing that they collected for this donation out on these tables. It's fantastic to see the amount of items that we're able to give and help out. So thank you to them. And lastly, I need to give a quick shout out. We have amazing assistant principals in our district. One of them sitting back there. So it is National Assistant Principals Week this week. So I just want to give a shout out to all of our assistant principals in the district and thank them for the hard work that they do every day. Thank you.
All right, we've just had a team from Gettysburg complete a year-long attendance training. We were attending quarterly at the IU with many other school districts and related resource providers. We focused on evaluation of our current practices, implementation of preventative and reactive measures in hopes to increase student attendance and engagement. Our team's getting together again tomorrow to see what we can do to put some of these steps in place for next school year. Testing window's right around the corner with our first testing day on Monday, April 20th. And our new math resources were delivered to teachers today, which is great. We're planning for our first round of professional development for our new math resource occurring on our half day in the afternoon on April 15th, and then beginning the process of planning for that as well as our other district-wide professional development needs for August already. We've concluded our new teacher induction meetings. Got a lot of really, really good information and feedback from how that went for year one and year two teachers. And our next step is to begin planning for induction for next year and see how we can take that feedback to improve our programs for our new teachers.
Awesome, thank you. Many good things happening, and I know that your updates don't include everything. There's all sorts of sports things going on. There's all sorts of concerts happening. I had the pleasure of participating side by side with all the elementary and middle school chorus directors for Songfest 2 weeks ago. So lots of great things going on in a busy time of year. So good luck to the teachers and students involved. Our calendar of events coming up. Next board meeting on a Monday, April 20th, here in this room at 7 o'clock. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Thank you.